Okay, so in our last lesson, we saw how generic class work in Java. Today, I'm going to show you that you actually can use an object class instead of generic type, and to make the same problem work with an object class. So to do this, I'm going to copy our last lesson into a new lesson. I'm going to do copy, and I'll paste it in. And I'll give it a different name. So I'm going to call this arrays to the object. Alright, let me find my new Java program. And I'm going to change this class name to array to the obj. So I'm declaring a new class. And right now everything should work. Let me put in to, because I'm changing the name of the class here, so I gotta match the name of the constructor. Okay, so basically now everything should work the same way it worked in our last lesson. We can verify that by running it, and you can see it's printed two different 2D arrays. Now, our lesson for today is we're going to remove the generic type. So we're not going to use generic type. And instead of the generic type, I'm going to use the object type. So I'm removing all the T's for the generic type, and I'm replacing them with object type. Alright, so that's all I needed to do in my array to object class. Let's go down here, see what else we need to do. So here, instead of having this, I'm gonna change it to my new class, which is array to the object. So I'm declaring A as the new class, which is the 2D array, but using the object type instead of the generic type. Equals to new array to the object. Okay, everything here is the same. And let's do the same thing over here. So I'm gonna change this to array to the object. Again, this is the new class that we have declared here. So instead of using the generic, we're using the object class. To the object. And let's save it. I believe that's all I needed to change to make this work. So instead of using generic, we're using object class to the array class. Okay, save it, and I'm gonna run it. And there you have it. So it works exactly the same as the generic. So then we can ask, like, why do we need to use the generic type? Why not just use object type? And the answer to that is when you use generic, the editor, in this case I use Eclipse, the editor would help you to filter out some errors that you probably don't see. For example, so everything up here works fine. Like if we just do that, everything works fine. But when you make a mistake and you do something like this, like if you say A equals to S, right? So basically A here is my integer 2D array, right? And S here is actually my string 2D array. See, this is S. So it's a string 2D array. So when you say an integer array equals to the string array, that's gonna give you an error. But say if you make a mistake and you're not aware of that, the editor let it go through. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't give you any error. In fact, it will compile, and you're not gonna know there's an error until when you try and access the value of this variable. So let's try and access the value of that variable. So I'm just gonna print it out to see what value this variable A has. And let's see, so we're gonna run it. And there you can see this is what you get when you try and print the value of that variable. It has some garbage in it. Now, on the other hand, if you had done this using, in our example, using generic, class, you see right there and then, it tells you right away that there is an error. Type mismatch. Cannot convert a string 2D array to an integer 2D array. So this one will not let you compile. It does not compile. It shows you an error. Because when you use the generic type, it knows that one array is an integer array and the other array is a string array. Whereas when you use the object type, it does not know the difference between one object and the other object until you try and run it, and that's when your program crashes and it would be a big mess. Alright everyone, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.